Welcome to another episode of me flipping PCs until I buy a house. The beautiful thing is that I do not just flip PCs, I flip SSDs, RAM sticks, monitors, every other IT hardware I can lay my hands on that can be flipped for profit. The Samsung 850 Evo, this was something I just listed about a few days ago. 250GB SSD sold for €17.96. I only have one piece of this, so definitely this listing is going to be deleted. Beautiful SSD, even though it's used, it's actually in the best condition that it can actually be. But the beautiful thing is that I still have this 120GB and another 120GB right there. They've both been listed, but fortunately this has been sold. We are going to just start the week with this. But then it's been raining whole day. That's the beautiful thing of having an online business. If I had a brick and mortar business, I would have had to go to the shop. It's possible I won't be motivated to go anywhere. If you have an online business, this is actually the best thing that can actually happen to you in 2025. It doesn't matter if it's raining, if it's sunny, you can actually run this business from the comfort of your home without having to worry in what condition the weather is. Today has been raining terribly. I hope that it's not going to continue like this to the end of the day. Hopefully we're going to have like an hour or two break to enable me bring my packet to the post office. But then if it decides to rain all day, I'm equally up to it because it's all about flipping PCs for profit, and I'm going to do it come rain, come shine. In between, there's a Dell Optiplex PC that I did send out on Friday. I'm just going to pull it up so that I actually see what is going on, because the buyer now, I see somebody sent me an email, asking, can I please know when the PC is going to be sent out? And from my experience, when buyers write and begin to ask questions like, where is my PC? When is it going to be sent out? Then it's actually not a good thing. I'm just going to go ahead and track it to be sure that this PC was actually shipped out, because there have been situations where I thought that an item was sent out only for me to take a look and see that the item wasn't actually sent out. But beautiful thing is that this particular PC was sent out on Friday, exactly 16 o'clock. So this packet has been put to the post. I'm just going to go ahead and quickly reply the buyer, because I do not want people to be left hanging. If that happens, it's not good enough. First of all, eBay thinks that you are not rendering good customer service to your buyers, and that is not good enough. So the first thing I have to do is now to go ahead and reply this buyer so that I know that this guy would actually, be at peace. All right. Yes, when you say online, one thing you do not want happening is for people to begin to write you to ask where is their order, because I kind of understand that, look, people are a little bit impatient. When somebody buys something from your shop to the tune of 354 euros, yes, the person or the buyer has every right to be a little bit impatient. PCs being what they are work tools. People buy these PCs to be able to get their job done. Now take a look. Imagine you are working on your laptop, and for one reason or the other, the laptop suddenly stops working and you have no power or no motivation to start to fix it. You just want to go online, go to eBay, buy a new one. You do not want to wait for 3, 4, 5 days for the items to be delivered. Yes, your patience could be enough for you to wait for like 1 day, 2 days at the most. But when the delivery starts getting really long, like 7, 8, 9 days, the buyer is going to be pissed off. And if the item gets delivered, any attempt for one particular thing not to be as described in the offer, the buyer is going to send the item back. So when I get requests from buyers asking me where is my item, I always want to spring into action to be sure that the buyer's emails were replied to. In this way, I can actually win a point for very good communication, and generally just to minimize having to deal with a disgruntled buyer. I still have a HP Elite Desk 745 G6. This sold for a decent amount, sold for 336 euros. Including shipping. The buyer actually wants a 1TB of NVMe SSD. This is not going to be difficult to pull off. And the beautiful thing is that on this PC, it's already installed. It's a 2GB of DDR4 RAM, so I'm going to go ahead and also pack it up. And I also have an Intel CPU G5600. This sold for €18.90. This is actually the last piece I have of this particular CPU, but definitely I should still be able to lay my hands on this. But then the Lenovo M700 mini PC also sold. This is one good transaction, sold for €185. If I remember correctly, this was listed about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I had crickets all along. Nobody was writing to ask me in what condition this PC was, even though I really do think that this was supposed to be, you know, a very, very decent PC that anybody would have snapped for the price. 32GB of DDR4 RAM, 256GB of NVMe SSD. This shouldn't be a difficult thing, you know, to set up. Guys, it's getting beautiful. Even though the last week was kind of brutal, things were just kind of, you know, strange, but this week has started on a very, very good note. A laptop is selling, a mini PC is selling, you know, we have got accessories, CPU, SSDs, and today is just Monday. When you take a look at it, we still have Tuesday, Wednesday, up to Friday to actually do something. Last month, like I said, wasn't really the best in terms of sales, but hopefully this month we are going to push it. I've been listing on Saturday. I listed a lot of items. On Sunday, I listed a lot of items. And this morning already, I have actually listed just one PC. And these are decent PCs ready to go. Hopefully somebody comes along. eBay does its magic, because right now I am already promoting my items according to what eBay wants me to do. I'm promoting at 17%, at 20%, you know, at 15%, at 16%. Depending on what eBay is suggesting to me, I'm just going ahead to promote these items because I want to go out of my way to ensure that I bring in the sales, because if I'm going to buy a house by flipping PCs, it actually starts now. It starts from today. It starts from me just pushing the boundaries to make sure that this sales, no matter what, comes true. Yes, if you sell as a business, it's highly recommended that you keep the invoices of your transactions, because definitely you're going to be using it for your tax purposes. And the buyer, whoever has bought your item, also needs those documents for tax purposes. A long time ago, I used to be very lazy about this. You know, the main thing was for me is that the item gets shipped out, but later on, I realized that I kept getting emails, you know, people writing me to ask where's my invoice, and I have to come back again to do what I originally need to have done in the first place. So what I do now is that whenever an item says, I just go ahead and print out the invoice and include it in the packet, so that in this way, I do not have to receive any email from the buyers. But even then, some buyers, being who they are, they still write you and say, sorry, I cannot find my invoice. Could you please send me a copy? This is expected. And when it happens like that, all I have to do is just to go ahead and do what I have to do, send it, boom, and it's gone. But in an ideal situation, this should normally be in the box. See, not once, not twice, I have actually received SSDs being returned back to me because the buyer says the system didn't detect the SSD. And because of that, I always like to check that my SSD is detected on my PC before actually sending it out. You know, this SSD, I already know that it's working because it was pulled out of a working system. But for one reason or the other, I've had these problems where a buyer actually writes back to me and says the system couldn't detect the SSD. And sometimes it could be very, very annoying, especially when I have actually taken pains to check it. But then it is what it is. Sometimes you have to go the extra mile just to be sure that the items you are sending out is in very good working condition. That's the SSD right there. Windows Boot Manager, it says Samsung SSD 850 EVO. Hopefully, if this buyer is going to reach out to me that the Samsung SSD is not being detected by the system, I have this evidence, you know, to show to the buyer that, look, this thing, before sending it out, it actually did work. So we do not have a situation where a buyer just goes ahead, you know, to make a claim that item doesn't work when in actual fact the item is in the best working condition. But if you've done your own part, there's really nothing you can do more other than to hope that the buyer of the item actually knows what he or she is doing, actually knows how to install it. And sometimes there have also been situations where I actually had to show a buyer through a YouTube video how to install an SSD on a PC. There have also been countless times where I actually had to deal with, you know, responsible buyers that knew what to do. You send the item, the buyer receives it, goes ahead, gives you a positive review, and everybody is just simply happy. You know, eBay back in the days was like, look, you come to the warehouse on Mondays, then you have orders for Friday, you know, Friday evening, Saturday, Sunday, all waiting for you. But today has been one quiet Monday. Mini PC going out, a laptop going out, you know, an SSD hard drive going out, and a processor going out. But it's barely 10 o'clock in the morning. So we still have a lot of time, you know, to get the orders in. But like I said in the last video I made, you know, sales are pretty much, you know, down right now. We do not know for how long this is going to last. You know, I've got really decent items up there. Hopefully, this is just a temporary situation, as soon as possible, things are going to get back to normal. But then when I have days like this, I also do not need to complain, because sometimes it could be very, very chaotic. I'm so happy today I was able to come in, peacefully. I was able to drink coffee. I was able to reply my customers without being under serious pressure. And if everything stays like this, I'm just going to take these packages to the post office, quietly. And this is one of those days I'm going to tell myself, yes, this was a very, very peaceful day. And I'm also going to enjoy it, because the idea of having this business is not for you to constantly be stressed. Yes, give or take, there's going to be those days where things are going to be messed up. PC is not working. You try to troubleshoot it, and it leads you to another kind of trouble. There are going to be days like that. When those days come, you also need to be prepared and be up for it. But then when days like this come, those peaceful days, enjoy it. Appreciate the fact that you can actually sit down, do some kind of brain dump. Take a look at your warehouse. Take a look at the things that you can actually put in place. If I have time still today, I'm going to go ahead and make sure I do a little bit of cleanup here, because things are pretty much back to how it was before. Like I always say, perhaps this is just me. If you always have a clean workspace, that presupposes that you are not being busy enough. Of course, I understand that some people really have very good work culture, like discipline. When anything can be classified as garbage, they are able to take it immediately and take it away. But that doesn't just work with me. I have tried over and over and over and again to make sure that I keep my workspace as clean as possible. But for one reason or the other, it just keeps getting messed up. But then today is the day I can actually go and do that. And hopefully I should be able to put things back exactly the way it was previously. And that reminds me, today I'm actually going to be driving to pick 4 of these monitors, these giant monitors I picked about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Up till now, I haven't done anything with the monitor. They are still lying around in the warehouse. But hopefully today I'm going to drive all the way to Munich, pick 4 monitors. I already picked 5 before, so making 9. And one more time, I'm still going to drive to pick the last one. When I have the 10 monitors and I have tested all of them, I'm sure they are all in good working condition, I can now go ahead to decide what best way to use to list them, But definitely, one thing I know, because the monitors are so big, there's just no way for me to ship them out. I'm going to be listing them as items that are going to be picked up by whoever decides, to buy them. So there's still a lot to do today, and possibly this week, eBay is going to show us that, look, I am the king of the platforms when it comes to buying and selling online. Until I see you again in the next one, peace.